Okay, so good afternoon to everyone. And to start off this digital marketing segment, I would like to introduce our Regional Director, Dr. Tendai Nduro, to say some welcoming remarks. You're muted, Dr. Nduro.
Hey, thank you. Yes, welcome to our third segment on marketing, digital marketing with our experts, Ms. Cecilia Henderson and Ms. Cheryl McCanns, our gurus on everything marketing. And I do want to welcome everybody who is participating currently. And this is SBDC Day, where we celebrate small businesses throughout the nation. And we also celebrate America's small business development centers for the work that they do to make sure that we have successful, sustainable businesses that last forever, hopefully, and you can hand them over to your family. You can sell it and maybe one day go IPO. So without much further ado, I just want to, I'm so proud of the number of experts that we have in different areas that a business needs. And today we have two of our marketing gurus to talk to you, and they also provide services to our clients in the SBDC. But also understand, I think some of you who have been with us since this morning are recognizing that our experts are also themselves small businesses. So they're not counseling you or advising you on theory, you know, what you think it should be. They live this, they also go through the struggle practically and in real time. So when they are talking to you about what you need to do, they know what it takes to run a small business. So welcome, and I hand it back to you. Take over.
Thank you. So for those of you that are now joining us, and for those of you that have been here, this is a Q&A live, and we will be taking questions in 4 different ways. You can post your questions using the Q&A feature here on Zoom, which does help to remain organized in terms of having the questions and the answers in one area. But you can also raise your hands, and a button is located next to the chat icon, and we will allow you to use your microphone to ask your question live. You can also use the chat feature that's available, and those of you that are viewing or streaming on Facebook, feel free to ask your questions there as well. So the segment is called Digital Marketing, and today we have two experts here to answer your questions. We have Cecilia Henderson and Cheryl McCanns. Cecilia and Cheryl are both consultants at the NJSBDC at Rutgers-Newark. And now, without further ado, I will turn the segment over to our experts and allow them to tell us a bit about themselves and their areas of expertise.
Cecilia, you want to go first?
Oh, sure. Thanks, Cheryl. Cecilia Henderson. I'm owner of WSI Marketing Edge, one of the small businesses. And my focus is really on helping New Jersey businesses claim and leverage their online presence. One of the big challenges that I see that businesses have is, what do I do online? And clearly with the pandemic, we know now that being online is incredibly critical. So those of us, I know Cheryl has probably experienced the same thing, people kind of rushing to get that online footprint and get that digital footprint. Well, where I come in is, well, what should that look like? Or I have a footprint and it's not doing anything for me. Or I don't have a strategy how to move forward with leveraging my website, my social media, my email. How do I pull that all together? And that's one of the things that I do. With the SBDC, I'm really pleased to work with Tendai, Tekoa, and Priscilla because I teach several classes there. One of them is around websites and social media, just an overview, just put your toe in the water and understand what it is. I also talk about, I have a class that focuses on creating your digital marketing plan. And I do a class that focuses on how to engage the ideal customer, because part of our challenge is really getting to that customer base that we need to get to. And I bring a really strong strategic marketing background to this. So segmentation, targeting, getting to that customer is really one of the things that I like to focus on with businesses. So with that, I'll turn it over to Cheryl.
Sure, thank you. So hello, everyone. So happy to be here. I am Cheryl McCants, the founder and CEO of Impact Consulting Enterprises. And the reason I'm here today is because we are all in this together. We all have to work together. And when it comes to digital marketing, as Cecilia said, we all need it. I will say, however, that you need to approach it strategically. And so what we do at Impact is we go strategy first. And when people come and say, I need to be on Facebook, I need to tweet, I need to be on Instagram, our first question is, well, why? And then we work backwards. So we start with strategy. Super excited to answer your questions here. And I would, if you take nothing away from the session today, please understand that as long as you think strategically and then prioritize and then implement and evaluate, you'll be able to assess and then put programs and processes in place that will have your digital marketing work for you, because that's the real purpose of it. So, Sequoia, it's all up to you.
Great, thank you. So now we will begin answering questions. So our first question is, I can't keep up with the recommended schedules to post on social media. Is it worth posting if I can't do that?
So I would say one of the services that we provide at Impact is social media management. And I would strongly suggest that your schedule, make sure that it's your own, and you post at the pace that is correct for you and on the channels that are appropriate for you. And if you're not going to post on a particular channel, shut it down so that you don't look like you're a dead end. So Cecilia, if you want to add to that, so I'm not sure what pace they think they need to post at, so I'll be curious to find out what pace, but my recommendation is post at your own pace, and if you're not going to post, close the channel.
Yeah, sure. I agree with exactly what you're saying. I think you can set your own pace. One of the challenges is that when you look at certain platforms like Twitter, they will say, oh, the average user posts 5 times a day, and Twitter is a platform where you can post multiple times and not beat your audience to death. Other platforms, that's not appropriate. So on LinkedIn, 5 times a day may suggest that you don't actually have a job. So you have to be very careful about how you utilize your time. But I get people coming to me and saying, I just can't do that. So, I'm going to throw my hands up in the air. And I'm saying, just like Cheryl is saying, set your own pace.
Right.
Think about it this way. I don't think anybody's sitting there with a metric saying, did, XYZ business post on Facebook 5 times a week or 4 times a week? But what is going to happen is if somebody comes to your Facebook page, if Facebook is an appropriate venue for you, they see that you are active there and they see that you're active routinely and recently. So they're not sitting there saying how many times a day. They're looking for almost, I call it a sign of life. Right. So I agree very much with Cheryl. Set your own pace, manage this tool. This is a tool for you. You're not a victim of it.
Right. And if you're not, what I will say to you is they're not going to measure how frequently you post, but if you don't post,
they'll know
they're not coming back.
Yeah.
And so if they get to your page, or if they see that you haven't posted in 9 months or 10 months, they're not going to come back, because people go to your social media for insight. And they go to your social media for guidance and to see what your thought leadership is. And if you haven't had a leading thought in 9 or 10 months, it's not worth it.
Okay, great. So we just got a question from Lisa in the chat. So Lisa is saying, we are a 53-year-old WBE printing company. Because we are printers, how do we transition to other ways of marketing to companies for new business? We are a small business, but we print for companies like universities, energy companies, advertising agencies, state and federal agencies. People are working remotely, making it difficult to mail marketing materials. I'm at a loss.
Yeah, this is really interesting because I look at that and I hear the types of customers, and who those customers are. You might want to consider doing some prospecting on LinkedIn, because with certain tools, you'll be able to identify people in certain companies in certain kinds of roles, and you can reach out to them using LinkedIn. So you could consider that approach. I understand what you're saying. People aren't necessarily in their office. They're often disparate locations, but having a LinkedIn presence, and I feel like I might have had a situation like that in the past where there was a publisher and they knew exactly who their target audiences were. So that, I think, is something that you ought to consider. Cheryl,
Right.
what do you?
Yeah, so to add to that, I would say they're people, right? So at the end of the day, you're looking to connect with people. And as Cecilia mentioned, LinkedIn is a great tool. And as a printer, I think what I'm hearing you say is that you traditionally mailed your materials to your prospects. I'm going to strongly suggest that people are still getting their mail. I'm going to strongly suggest that universities, colleges, utility companies, and the like that you have referenced as your clients have some mechanism in place for their remote employees to get their mail. And what you might want to do is reach out to an existing contact that you have in that space and ask him or her if they get their mail or how they're getting their mail. And then you can probably put together an email marketing campaign to reach out to your prospects to find out how they ask for their opinion. People love to give advice. So ask for their opinion, and then you might find that they'll be more receptive to you. And then there's that fine balance between email marketing and social media. We have one client that has said that they believe that Twitter is going to replace email marketing because people hate all the emails. That's a matter of opinion, and it may vary by industry. So I would strongly suggest that you leverage email marketing or maybe do a Twitter poll, but do something to engage your audience and to get their opinions so that they can see that you are listening and that you have something to say. I see a hand up over here.
I just want to add, because the client said, the guest said they do universities, and we are in a university. And one of the things that I always find people don't understand is how universities buy. In Rutgers University, it's the departments that buy the services directly, because the department and the business units have their own budgets. So if you're already doing business in a university with one department, one of the things that you could do is ask for referrals and introductions to other departments. And yes, we are not going in to pick our mail all the time at all, but we are receiving emails. So if you ask your current client or department that you're working with in that university to say, please, can you introduce me to another department who could use my printing services, or could you refer me to someone? Usually it's an introduction, and I get an email from that person who is also within the university that you have done business with. You are already verified.
Right.
And once you are in the system, you can work with any department. So think outside the box and don't be afraid to ask for referrals, for contacts, for people who are ideal to the current customers that you already have.
Yeah, Dr. Endoro, if you haven't gotten your mail since last March, I'm praying for you.
Okay, so can I say a couple of things?
We are required to sign a form to go on campus, and it's just not with the problem. So no mail, email is the way to go now.
Yes, so Lisa raised her hand, so she's going to ask her question or clarify on her question. Go ahead, Lisa.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so here's the situation. As far as asking for referrals, I'll work a little backwards. I always ask for referrals. As far as marketing materials, and now I have so many things swirling through my head here. Going after the same types of industries, well aware of, following up with people, getting their opinion on things, being contacted through LinkedIn. Here's the deal. I get so many email messages from people. I have no idea who they are, with all kinds of messages in the subject line, making me wonder, oh, do I know this person? I just forgot who they were or something, you know, prompting me to open the email, which I don't appreciate. But you mentioned, somebody mentioned Twitter may be taking over email, because we're inundated with emails. So I can tell you, I email clients and half the time they don't get back to me because they're busy. They don't want to be bothered. And I understand that. And I'm not going to push them to respond to something unless, of course, it's urgent.
I don't understand, Lisa. I'm not getting your question.
Okay, so, well, my question is, I understand I'm old school. I've been selling for a long time. I'm the person who would walk in the door, introduce myself, leave a card, get a person's name, get a phone number, follow up with the phone call. And it's all changed. Twitter, I get so many tweets. It's almost like email now. I get text messages on my phone. I'm like, people must be buying a mailing list with my phone number. So it just becomes more and more difficult. And I guess I'm at a loss. I'm hearing all these remedies that
So Lisa, take it like you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. Just take off a little bit, and you're right. What I hear is frustration, and that you can be, and it is overwhelming, and it is frustrating, and you are not alone. So what I would strongly suggest is you approach this one step at a time and see what works best for you. So you test it. Don't do email and Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter all at the same time, because you'll drive yourself crazy. So I would say, just try one piece. And I'm old school too, right? See the grace. So I would say just come slowly into the digital space, into the digital age, and try one thing at a time. Cecilia, do you have any suggestions?
No, I would agree with you. Just because there are all these channels to reach people doesn't mean you have to use them. So one of the other things is that you might take some trusted clients that you do have, if you can get them to talk to you for a few minutes about what they feel is really effective at reaching them. The other piece is making sure that what you do have out there is of value to them. I mean, there's a lot of transactional communication that goes on, but when we start to try to build relationships, we're adding value, we're adding content, we're increasing their understanding, we're trying to increase their capability to do business even. The question is, what's the right venue for that? So like Cheryl says, pick one, try it. If that works, you might want to add another one. If it doesn't work, dispense with that and go to the next thing, because it is overwhelming. But again, just because Twitter's out there doesn't mean that Twitter must be happening.
Right, not everybody needs to tweet. Mm-hmm. Not everybody needs to post, and you have to go where your audience is. And at the end of the day, as Dr. Ndoro said, Rutgers University, they are very decentralized, right? So you have to understand your particular client, know where they are, where do they live online, and how can you add value? And so that is probably the most critical question that you need to ask yourself. Is what you're doing of value to your prospects? If not, why not? If yes, why?
And I think what I'm also hearing is, your services might, because people have gone digital, the actual printing, like we stopped completely doing brochures, paper stock, collateral, etc. Start thinking, what else can I be doing in my business and offer as a service in the supply chain of what you do as a printer? So I'm assuming as a printer, you offer graphic design, graphic services. Start offering graphic design services. And I'm also thinking as a small business, I might need electronic letterheads so that my company continues having a certain look. And so I need a a template that has my letterhead, my information, where it's no longer a paper letterhead that I print and mail out, but it's a letterhead that I actually type in directly, and I sent it out to everyone, and I still have, and I can sign with a digital signature that you might create for me through your digital graphic services. And I can send it out and still be able to communicate electronically as I would with a hard copy. So start thinking of all the supply chain services that help you get to actually printing, and segment them into their own individual services that you could sell and generate income from other areas, and start marketing that as, that's pivoting. Start marketing that as other services you offer outside of the traditional hard stock printing business that you have.
Thank you for a great idea.
Okay, thank you, Lisa, for your question. So we have a question in the Q&A chat feature from Denise. Denise is asking, how do you find the best hashtags for your target audience?
That's always a good one. So I just want to say hashtags are interesting because really they are an organizing tool for a given platform. So in other words, you're assuming to a certain extent that somebody is going to search for what you've put associated with that hashtag using a hashtag. So it's a searching tool. How do you find the most appropriate one? I don't really feel like there's a science, but I can tell you that before you use a hashtag, you had better enter that hashtag in and see what comes up, because you might be very surprised to find that the things that you think when you associate something with a given hashtag are not the things that somebody else is thinking. And there's a story that I like to tell about the Vatican doing a, I guess they made a whole bunch of people saints. And so the Pope tweeted out, "Go Saints," and a whole bunch of people responded back saying, "Who dat?" which is New Orleans Saints.
Right.
So Go Saints was actually something that had already been camped on by somebody else. So this is why I'm saying check and make sure. So there's that first thing of thinking about the topics of interest that people might be searching for, thinking about, you know, the attributes that are associated with your product that people might be searching for, and then making sure that you understand what is there before you start to use them. The other piece is looking at the volume of hashtag usage. If you are going to use a hashtag and it's got 3 million uses, what that means is that in hashtag world, your post is going to be at the top of the screen for about 2 seconds before it falls off the bottom of the screen. So think of hashtags as that the next person that uses your hashtag is going to go in right on top of you and push you down, if you know what I mean. So you want a mix of these very popular hashtags with some that are more like an SEO, a long tail keyword, something a little bit more descriptive, but still close to your business. So I don't feel like there's a science to it. Cheryl may have more, but I just had done a whole bunch of research on this for a particular client, and they were obsessed with using certain hashtags, and I needed to talk them out of it, essentially.
Right. Right. No, you're absolutely right, Cecilia. I think there is, you could call it a science, but there's a methodology to hashtags. So you clearly need to do your research so that when you do say, you know, Go Saints, we know who dat, and we know that means I'm a big football fan, so I'm all over that, right? I would also suggest, however, that you spend some time researching. I'm going to put in the chat here. This is a free keyword finder. And as Cecilia mentioned, you want to look at long tail keywords, short tail keywords. However, you do not want to have a message that says, hashtag good morning. We're here to wish you a hashtag great, hashtag day, as we celebrate hashtag Women's History Month, right? So you want to be careful about how frequently you embed hashtags in your messages. We also have a client who gave us a list of 30+ hashtags that they wanted us to use in all of their messaging. And hashtags are search tools. Hashtags are designed for people to be able to identify and gather information based off of a particular topic. So one school of thought is you create your message and then you go in and comment on it with a hashtag. So that way, people, when they search the hashtag, they'll actually find your message, and the hashtag doesn't take away from the character count of the message that you're looking to share. You want to be careful that the hashtag is not too long. You know, hashtag let's all celebrate SBDC Day in New Jersey on today. That's too long, right? So you want to create hashtags and test them. Everything is about the data. It's all about the numbers and the data, and you have to measure the effectiveness of what it is that you're using. So if you find out that we use the hashtag make an impact, right? Because we're at Impact Consulting, we believe in impactful marketing, and we've done some research so that hashtag make an impact usually has positive stories associated with it. So we're not going to find ourselves in trouble with other data that we might not want to associate with ourselves. So do your research, test it, check it, do some long tail keyword searches, and figure out what works for you.
Okay, great. So our next question is, how do I measure my business's marketing success?
How do you measure the success?
Yes, of your business, social media marketing.
Are you making money? So that's going to be, you know, my response. So at the end of the day, even if you are a nonprofit, we are all here to generate more revenue than we have expenses, or at least try to break even. So you want to track what you're doing. Every marketing campaign that you implement is measurable. Digital marketing makes marketing more measurable now than ever before. People used to say, oh, public relations, you can't measure. Marketing, you can't measure. That is so not true. You can see how many people come to a website, look at a tweet, share a post. You can track engagement. You can figure out where those people come from. You can even do heat maps on your websites to see, you know, what part of the website they find more attractive or less attractive than others. And you gotta, numbers matter. And as business owners, small or large, the thing that you have to always remember is to count what you're doing and measure the effectiveness. If you've got a campaign and if you're doing something and say you run an Instagram campaign, but nobody participates, clearly that ain't working. So you need to figure out, is Instagram the platform for you? Have you built up enough following? You know, who are you going after? If you do A/B testing, change a picture, change a headline, you know, do something to measure. But the way to determine the effectiveness of anything that you do is to see what the numbers say. Cecilia?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you. One of the things that I think of, you know, you're talking about analytics. There are these things called vanity analytics, like how many followers you have on Instagram. It's a great metric, but ultimately, if you have 1,000 followers, that's great. Maybe you don't have 1,000 of the right followers. It may be better to have 200 of the right followers than 1,000 of people who don't care. So that's why I think Cheryl started with, are you making money? Because ultimately, the ultimate metric is, was there a conversion? So you will sometimes have situations where your numbers, some of those metrics just aren't that striking, but in the end, you may get the 3 or 4 people that convert. These are the people that buy the thing, and those are the people that really matter. So I would just say, be very careful about getting so caught up in number land and leaving behind your ultimate metric, which is your revenue target.
Right. And like Cecilia mentioned, be cognizant of vanity metrics, right? So I always joke and say one of my first followers was my mother, which is really nice, right? But she's not my target audience. So it's really about engagement. And you need to also be reasonable. So we all know what SMART goals are, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time bound. I'm going to suggest you create SMART T goals. Make sure they are also inclusive and make sure they are equitable. So that when you are putting your plans together, you are ensuring that your goals are going to reach diverse audiences and that you're going to be able to connect and communicate to everyone that is part of your buying persona. So as you are tracking, followers don't matter, engagement does. Also understand that engagement on Twitter is very different than engagement on Facebook, you know, and Twitter, now I'm going to date myself, right? But remember back in the day at the TV screen, you used to have the stock market ticker tape run across the TV. So I know, Sequoia, do you remember that? You're probably too young.
I do.
Oh, wow. Okay, good. So, you know, Twitter is like that ticker. And so it's running. So people will see your tweet. They might retweet it. They might not. So, however, on a Facebook platform, there's a greater probability of somebody sharing or liking. And know that if people take the time to either celebrate or like, that's important because we are all very, very busy. And the fact that they've stopped to show some level of engagement, that matters much more so than how many people are following you.
Okay. Our next question is, how often should I update my website, write a blog, or post on social media?
Cecilia?
No. The first thing is that you should update your website, you should post on social media, and you should have a blog. Now, how often, remember that whole discussion we had earlier about, you know, making a schedule that works for you? That's where you kind of apply your marketing magic or your organizational capabilities. Because remember, with scarce resources, if you're doing this, you're not doing something else.
Right.
Even if you
Right.
outsource it, if you're spending it on this, you're not spending it on something else.
Right.
What we know is that if you don't update your website gets stale and suddenly it starts to perhaps lose a little of its SEO juice. What we know, you know, again, you heard that whole example of let's not have a social media site that you were posting on and then you haven't touched it for 6 months. So it's very hard to just say, oh, it should be monthly. There are people who blog weekly. There are people who blog daily. They just have that capability. You have to decide what is yours.
Right, right. So definitely. So an important point is regarding SEO. So as it relates to your website, and Google is, I'm going to say the queen, not the king. So Google is the queen of SEO traffic measuring and monitoring. And so your site will drop in Google rankings if you don't update something on the site on a regular basis. They look to make sure that it is current. I would say when you have a new product or service, you should update your website. You should blog about it and you should post about it. So if you are looking to find the right cadence or the right frequency, it would depend on the business that you're in. So here at Impact, we provide marketing services. We write for our clients. We blog for them. We create their social posts, and we also update their website. It's what we do because we are a marketing communications company. If you are manufacturing widgets and you have a new widget, talk about it, share it, post a picture of it. So you might not write a blog, but you might post a picture. So the frequency and the type of media that you're going to share will vary dependent upon the market that you're in and the content that you are producing.
I think that's a great point, Cheryl. You know, if you want references, take a look at several of your competitors and see what they are doing. But do not let that drive you crazy.
Right.
That's all
Right.
I'm doing.
Okay, and I do see that Dr. Enduro did place in the chat a very important resource so that you can locate or find any errors on the back end of your website. So please look at that when you can. Okay, our next question is, how can my company most benefit from using digital marketing, especially now during these times of uncertainty?
How can the company most benefit from using digital marketing? What a great question. What I would say is that keep in mind that digital is the current channel that we use for marketing. Marketing has always been around, and whether it was initially word of mouth, newspapers, then magazines, television, radio, and with the advent of what I originally used to call the information superhighway, which we've renamed the internet. And so now when you have technology, as technology evolves, so will your marketing. So don't be overwhelmed or afraid of the term digital marketing. You're going to take your marketing strategy, figure out who your audience is, figure out where they are, and then give it to them. So how would you market on radio? Radio is now online. You still need a voice. You still need words. You know, how do you market on television? Television's online. You still need people. You still need words. You still need pictures. How are you going to market from a printing perspective? You still need graphics and imagery. So don't be intimidated by the word digital. Just consider it marketing and then identify the appropriate channel for you to use to reach your customers.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, in a sense, your marketing, when you market, you want to be where people are. And what's happened with the pandemic, a lot of people have gone online. I mean, social media usage has shot through the roof. People who did not know how to turn their laptops on are now on Zoom meetings all the time. So online shopping, all of that is highly relevant. And so, you know, without knowing exactly what your business is, you know, I'll echo what Cheryl has said, you know, understand who your target audience is and where they are. That's where you need to be.
We do have a chat. I'm just backtracking a bit. We had a question from Diane. Diane's asking, what are your thoughts about email marketing?
I think we talked about that
We did?
a little
Okay.
bit. Yeah. So, you know, when we shared the fact that email marketing, you want to balance it out against social media. What I would add to that conversation, and Cecilia, feel free to jump in, is when it comes to email marketing, this is where good old-fashioned copywriting and copy editors come into play. And so when you think about jingles and taglines and things that are memorable, if I were to say, just do it, y'all would know that I'm talking about Nike, right? So that's their tagline. So it's very important that as you are crafting email messages, that the subject line be enticing, encouraging, captivating, because you need people to open the email. The challenge that you'll find a lot of the time nowadays is that people, like me included, I have Outlook, and so I can screen the first 2 or 3 lines of an email message, so I don't even open it. And then if you don't open it, you get dinged by your customer relationship management tool, your CRM tool, as having a low open rate. So you've got to find the right balance of getting an encouraging subject line, something that's going to get people to click, and they have to open your email so that you don't eventually be included or identified as spam.
Right.
Cecilia, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think there are some studies that talk about how effective email marketing is from a cost effectiveness standpoint. I actually have not seen those numbers in real life, but I think part of it is because when you, I'm sorry, I was distracted by something I saw in the chat. But part of it is because, you know, email marketing is relatively inexpensive, and it does get you in front of people, and it can get you in front of many people. One thing I would say, though, is be careful how you build your list. Email marketing, I have run into folks who will ask, oh, I can buy these emails. Can I use them? Can I just start marketing to them? And the answer to that is actually no. People have to, in some way, agree to get your email. So you do want to use an email marketing tool. You don't want to be using Gmail to email to your list of 1,000 people. This is not the way to go. You should use Constant Contact, Active Campaign, MailChimp, anything out there that will allow you to send properly. But again, not in an unsolicited way.
Absolutely, absolutely. And use more images.
Yeah.
And when you are sending that email marketing, test it. Do some A/B testing. You know, only change one thing though. Like, don't change the picture and the subject line and the copy, because then you won't be able to measure the effectiveness of what is and what is not working.
Right.
I just wanted to add that with cybersecurity, with email campaign, you really have to be very thoughtful as a small business, because even if you're using an email campaign platform, your business, your email coming from Gmail, Yahoo, and not your business email could be suspect. The other thing is, if you are going to embed links in that content, and with cybersecurity issues, people are so scared of clicking on links that will bring malware into their hardware. Make sure you have described what that link is and where it's going to lead and what it's about. So your content communication has to be on point to make sure that people are going to say, well, I'm not clicking on this link because it's going to bring malware into my or it's going to compromise my security into my hardware. So there's a whole, and that's why it's always important to work with companies and with people who are sophisticated at doing this, because trust is a huge issue in digital communication.
And we do have a follow-up question. I think it was based on what you had spoken about, Cheryl. Martina is asking, what are funnels?
Well, a funnel is exactly that, right? A funnel. And so it's where you start big and end up small, where you identify who it is. Like my mother was in my beginning funnel, but my mother doesn't buy from me. So when you have a funnel, you are looking at your prospects. You are looking at, you need to, again, have a strategy. As Cecilia and I have said throughout this hour, it's important that you approach your marketing strategically. And so you have a funnel where you start with the widest breadth. Think of it like a mosquito net, right? And oh, mosquitoes. So, you want to capture as much as you can, and then you want to narrow it down. You want to make sure that you are looking at one product or service, one specific audience member or not. Don't try to be all things to all people at the same time, so that you can eventually have it drop down to where you've got that 2 or 3 individuals who are buying your products and services, and then you'll know what works. So your funnel is a virtual visualization of how you are going to narrow down the larger prospect to the buyer, right? Cecilia, your thoughts?
Yeah, very much the case. I always think of, like, they have a term called AIDA or AIDA, I don't know. At the very top, you have this whole group of people. They're kind of strangers, but they may in fact be aware of your product. Then you have a subset of those people who might actually have an interest in your product. Then there are these people who, I'm interested in it, now I actually really want it. And they engage in a group of behaviors that will indicate that they're really desiring your product. And at the end, there are the actors, the people who buy. Those are the people that you're trying to get to. So obviously you're narrowing down as you go through that. The other thing is that when you're putting together your programs and your campaigns, you may be pitching content to various points in that buyer journey, from basic awareness down to real interest and action. And at the real bottom of the funnel are your recommenders, the people who will go out and proselytize about your business and say, you really need to go and work with Cheryl because she's the greatest. So that's, yeah, there you go. So, and I think about the funnel much. I mean, think about it like when you're buying what they call a considered purchase, a high value purchase, like a car. That's where you begin to see, you think about your process that you use when you're buying a car, because it's, several, tens of thousands of dollars or whatever it is. So you're going to think about that, and you're going to go through a process. And so at the very end, you're left with the people who decide to buy this brand of car. All right.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And now here's going to be a shameless plug. And Dr. Endoro did not pay me to say this, but I saw somebody put in the chat, Where can you go to learn about this? Right here.
Yeah.
So the Small Business Development Centers of New Jersey, especially the Rutgers-Newark branch, because we are the best, and I know it's SBDC Day. However, there are a series of free and very low-cost courses. Cecilia teaches several, I teach several. There are other consultants that teach them as well. So anyone who is looking to gather more information about digital marketing and what we are talking about, there are free mini webinars, and then there are very low cost full day webinars where you all can get more, do a deep dive is what we call it, right? So you can take a deep dive. And so I would say go to that website that I see on their screens, the rnsbdc.com. There's a button there, if I remember correctly, that says training or events or something like that. Click on it, look for Cecilia or Cheryl, sign up for our classes, and you will be certain to get access to some of the best digital marketing tips that we have. Okay.
Yes. And we are a bit running out of time, but we do have a question from Facebook. Tesha is asking, how soon in advance should you begin to market a new product, such as a book?
How soon in advance? I would say that it depends on what your marketing goals are. So now with COVID, you used to look for book tours, right? So now there's virtual book tours. So you have to look at the vehicle that you're looking to leverage. If you're looking for a long lead pickup, you need to start that plan sometimes 9 to 12 months in advance. If you're looking to get a segment on a podcast, you need to find out what their production schedule is. If you're looking to solicit pre-sales, then you want to do that before the book is published. If you're looking to get early bird sales and you're sharing that on social, is it news? If it's news, it's happening now. If it's an update, it's already happened. So I would say you need to strategically think about the various tools that you're going to use to market that book and who the audience is. And then each one of those tools has its own timeline associated with it.
Mhm.
Great. So we do have a question from Diane. She said, the question is really about marketing funnels. I have attended some of them, yet they seem out of order for me. An email marketing list. I don't have a website and was told by one in marketing I don't need one, and I can just do a landing page. Can someone explain the purpose of landing pages and can I use them versus a website?
Okay, now we know what you're talking about. I think you're talking about this, like a ClickFunnels kind of environment where, you've got an offer. I mean, it's almost like, here's the thing, a funnel is usually designed to try to get to a sale. And what they're trying to do is to get a, how can I put it? You get a person to express interest by downloading a white paper. And then before they leave, you say, but wait, for $10, you can buy this. And then they, ideally would buy that. And then, but wait, for $50, you can buy this. And they start bringing you further and further in to do this. It is kind of a proven way to work, but it really depends on your category. And I know people have had mixed experiences. What I would say though is that if you're running a business and it's not a one product thing, your funnel is not a place to tell a story or give a background or create a relationship. And that's something that your website in conjunction with your social media presence can do for you that a funnel really can't. Funnels are very focused on a thing, and just understand that. Now, if you don't need or want that relationship and you're not going to create continued activity from a person, maybe you could go that route. But I would hesitate to say you don't need a website or a more permanent type of footprint if you're running a business. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, so to build on what Cecilia said, a landing page, let's not forget, it's online, right? And so some people use landing pages instead of a full multi-page website. However, if you've got a one and done, right, and if it's a simple message and you don't really need to explain it, you know, I'm looking to sell this plastic spoon. And so we all know what plastic spoons are used. Well, we don't know what they're used for, but we all know what a plastic spoon is. So if it's a product or a service that doesn't require a lot of background, a lot of explanation, and it's something you want to think about it almost from a retail perspective. We all know that in the retail industry, there's typically a 300 to 400% markup on the cost of the item. And that's why you can see the retailers have their one-day sale, right? And so it's the one day this week that we're going to have this sale. And that's why they can have such huge markdowns. And so in your funnel, if you're going to offer me my spoon for $1, but by the 5th time I go to leave your website, it now only costs me $0.25, right? So you want to make sure you have enough markup in your product, there's enough margin there, and that, as Cecilia mentioned, you don't need a long-term relationship with the end user. They're just there to come, get that item, and then leave.
Yeah, one thing that I would say too, you know, to build on what Cheryl has said, is that I've created websites where, you know, as I told you, I'm focused on telling that story. But the services themselves, if you click on a service page, it may in fact be capable of being a landing page. You know, it's got the contact us form. A transaction can be conducted directly from that page, but it's part of a whole picture for somebody who has multiple services or multiple product lines that they want to feature. So I just think that a landing page is supposed to be very focused. In perfect world, a landing page does not go anyplace else on your website. It's like a cattle chute. You go to the landing page, you can't go anyplace else. And the reason for that is that if they've clicked on the ad that took them there, then you don't want to distract them by giving them the opportunity to go elsewhere. So we're not being nice, and we're not saying, oh, you might as well put it there so they can go visit that. No, 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 no. You're very focused. You've made the choice that this is important enough for you to try to force their activity on that one account.
Okay, and that's all the time that we have today. Thank you so much, Cecilia and Cheryl, as well as to Dr. Enduro for sharing your expertise and answering these questions. And a thank you to all of our participants for asking your questions. We really do appreciate it. And for those of you that still have questions based on this topic, I'm going to insert into the chat right now our website where you can request counseling, and you can ask those questions and we will get those answered to you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And everybody have a fabulous rest of the day.
Same here. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, so just to transition over, we will be having our next segment, which is actually procurement. So you're able to feel free to stay on to the Zoom Live as it's transition over, or you can join back at the time of another segment. So just to briefly remind you of the schedule for today, we have our procurement from 12 to 1. We have our international trade and manufacturing from 1 to 2. We have cybersecurity and e-commerce from 2 to 3. And lastly, we have credit and capital and finance from 3 to 4. So again, thank you to our experts, and we will now transition into procurement.
Actually, international trade.
International trade and manufacturing, my apologies.
No problem.
Thinking about turning your dream into a reality? The New Jersey SBDC Network can help. We provide startup and planning training services, tools and resources to help evaluate your business idea, help you make sound business decisions, and pursue your dream of business ownership. It's important to note that we do not provide grants or loans. However, we provide information and technical assistance on how to access capital. Sound like you're in the right place? Great. The next step is to visit us online to get started on your path to success today.